Imagine you have a website where you have a few things. I have a sample Aadhaar PAN card, and then I have a bank account number, and then I have a George Matthews, which is the name of a person. Uh, so to give you context, own my I run my own company, which is InsurTech company primarily. And what we do is we build insurance CRMs and marketing solutions for people in the insurance broking and the broader insurance intermediary sector as of now. And oftentimes the requirement is that we have a lot of data on our platform, and maybe in the worst case we can or like in the average case we can mock it out for our marketing. So for example, obviously we cannot use actual prod data for any marketing, so we often use fake data or synthetic data for our development work or marketing work. But even if, let's say, I am to take a screenshot of my CRM portal from our staging server, oftentimes the data will probably look very similar no matter how many times you reload on a page, right? Because the data isn't being generated on the fly again and again. We basically would seed the data with some sample information and then keep using that for some time until we require to wipe the data for whatever reason. Maybe during the development it gets corrupted, or we drop the database, or sometimes you change development machines. Obviously none of this affects production, but even then it's not a very good idea to sort of have a static set of marketing imagery, or I should say wordings or data, even if it's fake, being consistently the same. And in general, there are sometimes use cases where you want to share something with people and you don't want to show the exact details that are on the page, but maybe give them an idea about, okay, I am using this website and this is what it roughly looks like. And so I had an interesting idea where I thought, okay, why can't we use on-device LLMs to remove these sort of personally identifiable information and replace them on the fly using browser specific AI to then theoretically have something like this. Just to give you an example, obviously this is not how it will work in practice, but there is this API I think called design mode equals to on. So now I can technically replace this with George to be something like Sam and Matthews to be something like Nicholson, right? And then replace this bank account number with something else like 1456 or some other gibberish, right? Basically it replaced it with fake data using LLMs. And the core goal of this exercise that we are looking to do here is to I have a good idea actually. Let's draw it out using something like Excalibur or something. I'll just, you open it here because I'm pretty sure I have some company product ideas and stuff charted out in my Excalibur on Chrome already. So the idea is to basically the big idea, of course. Number one, not use any paid LLMs, make a dev tool, because like primarily targeted towards local dev use cases. Obviously you can probably ship it to prod as well if that's what you need, and it should work fine, but that's not what my use case is. And then what about the third one? Yeah, so another use case that I can think of is to detect PII or any sort of names, company names, or any sort of sensitive numbers, phone numbers, emails, or bank account numbers, right? And another thing that I want to do is make it extremely shippable or shareable. That is also a core goal. And what I mean by that is that no need of installing uh, like, or better yet, call it, make it as copy pastable as possible. Essentially ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि आपको बहुत कॉम्प्लिकेटेड सेटअप यूज़ करना पड़ रहा है टू मेक दिस अवेलेबल इन योर कोड बेस. Ideally I will ship a TypeScript version and then maybe also ship a JavaScript version. Now what I mean by that is कि I would rather have it as a GitHub gist rather than an npm package. Now what I mean by that is कि ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि you need to do something like npm I vat on dev tools. This is not what we want. हम ये कर सकते हैं technically, but that would, in my opinion, raise the requirement for, I would say, maintenance quite a bit, where let's say I or somebody else in the community will have to maintain it. Another challenge is then this becomes difficult to use in some environments where, let's say, external packages are not allowed or encouraged. तो I would much rather have a GitHub gist जिसको आप बस copy paste कर सकते हो and then you can use it, and as long as it works the same, it's fine by me. Now this is the core goal, but I'll now break it to you that I don't have complete idea as to how to build this. What I do know is that it is possible to do, most likely, at least on a relatively modern machine this should be possible. So what are the unknowns? So what are the unknowns that you'll have to navigate? Number one would be like, how do I run on device LLMs across systems? Basically या तो कई लोगों की मशीन ऑन डिवाइस LLMs को सपोर्ट ही नहीं करेगी बिकॉज ऑफ सिस्टम कंस्ट्रेंट्स, एंड अगर वो करती भी है तो हाउ डू आई make it runnable without something like llama or something installed? Of course, if it is there, this becomes a much simpler problem, but I would ideally like it to be at least a on-click sort of process for users, because people in the marketing team might use this, so they are not essentially pro developers or people who essentially know how to work with something like llama. We should give them on-click install, and that is another thing that I would like to add as a core goal or the big idea, कि we shouldn't have to do a lot of complex wiring up at the time of use. At the time of development it's okay, some heavy lifting at time of dev is acceptable, right? Now this is the core premise. Now ideally what the product would look like in my mind is that you'll have a UI like this, have a couple more cards in it. Let's say this is a person's card and this is a company card, and what you'll then have is, I'll say Vijay Kumar, and here I will say Sheetal Enterprises, just random names, private limited, and we have both of these cards. ऐसी challenges and I would say ऐसा PII data is very common in insurance. So they would have a PAN card like C, D, TP, D, 3011 H or G. This might not be valid PAN, but this is something that we'll do for now. Now this will probably have like a bank account number, and इसको अपने को replace करना है. Like this needs to go and be replaced with on the fly. It can take like 5 to 10 seconds. That's completely acceptable, but this needs to quickly transform to, let's say, something like, and the exact specifics don't matter here. Maybe this becomes Ritu, Rani, and as long as it's not a real human. DX P की जगह Q 3031G, and then this can be replaced by on the fly with something like शीतल की जगह MS Ganguly Infra Solutions, something, and bank account number obviously will be replaced, and then all of this becomes new data essentially. So there is actual data, or even in a staging environment or dev environment, this is fixed data, and then I would want to replace it on the fly with random data detected and replaced. These are the two important steps by AI, ideally on device. So now how to do this, and a lot of our architecture will be dictated by this part, which is we shouldn't have to do a lot of complex wiring up at the time of use. This premise number 4, and using any paid LLMs or ideally hosted LLMs. So this premise 4 and 1 will really dictate our architecture, and this is where my research comes in. Right before that, so the stream seems to be working all right for the most part. Right, so let's build a quick prototype. For this I'll be using Vite React. So Vite is the build tool, I should say, and then we will be using React as a front-end framework, and from there we will try to use the Gemini on device LLM API. I am not exactly sure what the name is. So one constraint that we will be relaxing initially, or maybe that's how we end up shipping in the last stage, is that it's okay if we are constrained to a relatively obscure browser. Now this could involve something like a Chrome canary, or maybe let's say an Edge dev beta or whatever, or maybe let's say you need to install a Chrome extension. I think this is also a possibility, but again, once you enter the Chrome extension territory, from there it's a slippery slope, and you need to start thinking at what point am I drawing the line between requiring users to do extra steps, and like, does having to install a Chrome extension count as an extra step? And then some Chrome extensions are even taking it one step further, as I have observed in the little bit of research that I was doing. Some Chrome extensions, or I should say browser extensions, require installing a native app also, which makes sense in some aspects. Cool. So this is one API, not this one. LLM on device. new, it's called the language model API, and as far as I understand it has 4 sub APIs within that. It's a very new standard. It's not even rolled out in a lot of places right now. This is not the one. I could use this one also. So from here on out, this is, you can expect me to not have a lot of clue. I had a basic idea that I presented to you, but I don't have an actual implementation path with me. I have rough ideas as to how to do it. But from here on out, many of you who are probably watching this have about as much clue as I do. And I have a little bit of time with me right now, so hopefully I'll figure it out by the end of this stream, or maybe I'll do like a follow-up stream to close this off. But yeah, let's get started. If I could find the web page which had details of how to run or what the new inference API looks like. Interface nahi. Run Gemini Nano. Yeah, this could be the one. Chrome Canary. These were the flags. There was this demo. Okay, I think they have removed it now. Where was this? Okay, yeah, I think this is the one. This is built-in AI. Yes, finally. So they have a few APIs, and as I understand right now, it's very limited. It has very limited availability right now. So while the spec is changing wildly, it's somewhat agreed upon that okay, these are the 4 or 5 APIs that Gemini and Google team at least will roll out, where one is a writer API, another is a rewriter API, there is a translator API, one language detection API. So it's like, because on device LLM models, especially those which are coming in from a browser on the fly when you need it, they can't be as great as, let's say, something that you have which is multi-100 billion parameter large language model. So they have tried to split it into different use cases. So there are like many small models, as I understand, or at least optimized models for these particular tasks, where one task is, let's say, writer, rewrite, another is rewriter, then there is translator, language detection. And I think the most versatile among these, or I should say like the most useful one in my understanding, is this one, the prompt API, where this is the one which actually feels like how you would talk to a large language model, where let's say you are passing these initial prompts, then there is a role and a content sort of object that you are passing in, and then you get like a completion. So this is the API that I ideally want to access. But as I understand right now, it's not available in many places right now. And for that, there was, and also it's not very well documented either right now. So there is this other website, or I should say a service provider, that has the same API that Chromium team and Chrome team has come up with, and they provide abstractions around it so that you can use the same API, but you can now use it in any browser. And then they do like a polyfilling of sorts, where if, let's say, obviously Chrome would have it by default, or at least Chrome Canary would by default. If that is not there, then they shim it out and sort of replace it on the fly with their own implementation. And I think, as far as I understand, they also support a few things like Hugging Face and all, if you, let's say, want to bring your own models. And then they have a final fallback to the WebGPU API, and I think this is this is like the worst experience in terms of user experience, because of certain constraints that I might cover later on. But this is like a safer bet in terms of compatibility, and I would say there is a chance that they have a better documentation in some places uh, as of now. So I might be trying this instead of trying to rock with the Google documentation and Google's attributed way of doing things. So now you know that there is a spec which is popularized by Google, and they are also trying to get other major browser players to adopt it. I also saw a Firefox issue uh, about this uh, built-in AI GitHub proposal, where let's say somebody from the GitHub team was trying to get the Mozilla team to agree to the same spec. I don't know, like I don't have the link to it immediately available, but this is one of the discussions that I was seeing between the Chrome team and the Firefox team. Cool. So to get started, we need an app first. I'll close this one because we probably don't need it anymore. We'll be starting from scratch, and then we'll get started. We'll copy this and go to the terminal. This is like some playground work that I was doing. So wipe coding and a few examples on the internet showed me that this is at least technically possible, and from there on out I'm mostly on my own to actually implement it once without much of vibe coding, if at all. And so in some sense I am being tested as well for if I can implement this on my own. So yeah, cool. Vite is installed, and I would call this on device PII masker. I'll use React, thank you very much. TypeScript on device. Open this in VS Code. Currently my IDE of choice after experimenting with windsurf and cursor. Let me do an npm install and then I'll get started. I might take assistance for like CSS styling and markup writing, but I'll try my best to write majority of the JavaScript on my own. Cool. We don't need this. I'll much rather have like 2 cards in place. Just a second. How do I pause the stream for a minute? I have no idea. Stop stream. Will this stop the recording as well? I have no idea. Wait, I can switch to a blank screen, no? But would this change the audio output as well? No, it won't. I have no idea. Cool. Let's continue. So cool. So we have this app. Let's clear it out. And then I'll need to add a bunch of cards here. So this is my card number 1, or I could very well call it a section. None doesn't make much of a difference right now. Cool. And hopefully I want to add corporate. Hopefully Copilot will help me a little bit. Not like this. I just want one person's detail. Obviously I could do it this way as well, but and I would want something like name, and I would want phone number. I'll just get rid of this. This is fine. Okay. Then let's add one more thing here. It could be social security number, and here I could want Bharat Petroleum for an example, BSNL India Limited, just as an example, PAN card. Another challenge that I foresee with this sort of a solution is that these small models, they might not have a lot of data for an Indian context. So that is one possible challenge that I see, that it might be able to detect, let's say, American names and entities, but it might not have any luck with the Indian counterparts. But we'll see when we get there. Cool. For some reason my hot reload isn't working properly, I guess. Interesting. Another thing that I would like to do is use something like Water.css. This is something I like to use in projects where I don't really care about how it looks, but still want to make it slightly nicer. As soon as I add this, it looks slightly better, I would say. Right. So now we'll make these into cards. Hopefully Copilot will complete this for me. I'll just import this app.css and say that card should have a border. What is it called? Border width. Thank you. Why is my autocomplete broken all of a sudden? Not autocomplete, not reload. It should have worked. Or is it because of the syntax? I'll need some padding. Again, probably not the best way to define padding, but who cares. Make this a div, or I should probably make it like a main technically, and then our main becomes display flex. How do I add a gap? I have no idea. Yeah, gap, if this works, fine. Good enough. Now wrap all of these in paragraphs and these as well. In my opinion, all paragraphs should also get a vertical margin, maybe a and then every paragraph gets a margin vertical. So this is sort of what I want. So now at least we have two cards, and now we want to move to quickly to the AI bit. So ideally what I would like to do is either make a hook or a component. Now building the component bit, I guess, would be not, it won't be, yeah, I guess it will be simpler. So I would say dev tools and then call it index.tsx. So this is my dev tools now. I'll just call it, for example, Raton dev tools. Obviously you can name it whatever you want, and then here I'll add simple sample text, and then ideally I would want to put it outside of everything. Like, it should have nothing to do with the main document whatsoever, because this is a dev tool. So your app should work completely fine for the most part, even without it. This tab is broken for whatever reason. Right. Then I'll add a bit of styling here as well, where I will say position is absolute, because I want this to be like a floating action button actually, but obviously that's not as important right now, so I'm skipping it. So it should be in, let's say, the bottom right, if that's how the syntax works. Yeah, it's now in the bottom right. I don't know. Yeah, that's where my camera is as well, so probably you can't see it. So we'll move it to left 0. Right. And then we'll add a simple button called replace PII. See, this is the good thing about something like a color Water.css, where if I, let's say, I'll just show it to you for contrast. So this is what it looks like with Water.css, and this is what it will look like without Water.css, right? It's not as, or not nearly as good looking. Obviously I'm not saying that Water.css looks perfect, but yeah, it's these little bit of optimizations that you can do sometimes, which reminds me of border radius, because this surrounding looks better. But okay, quickly moving on to the next part, which is our what happens when somebody clicks this button. So I'll call this handle click, a very standard pattern in React, where you have like a function which does something. I'll want an alert. Yep, this works. Now I'll need to work with AI AIBrow, and let's quickly read through the documentation together. Just a minute. Right. So meet AIBrow, which enables on-device AI in your browser, private, fast and free. It's open source and supports Llama, Gemini, Phi and many other models. So it follows the current proposals of the browser machine learning APIs. As I said, the one that we are probably interested in is the prompt assistance API. There are other APIs as well. I haven't checked those out. The one that we are interested in is this third one, which is prompt API. I think there are more. I think I showed you, but I think these three are the ones which AIBrow is most interested in right now. And that is based on this language model.create syntax that we'll be trying to work with today. So these are currently being developed and trialed in Chrome, as I told you, but support even within the Chrome's own browsers is not best, I would say. But AIBrow extends this base, and it, in my opinion, gives like a nicer abstraction around it. So even if it is not present, it's easier for you to know that it's not present. And I think they also have some abstractions which help you understand that, okay, even if we, let's say, support 3 different ways of running models, which is one would be the default Chromium one, and then you'll have the AIBrow extension which uses llama.cpp. I think I have it installed, so it's not a Chrome extension per se, as I understand, but it's actually something like a on-device background job sort of a situation here. And then finally, and in my opinion, the worst in terms of user experience, but also the easiest to get going with across the board, is the WebGPU and WASM route, where basically, as I understand, it will download the model when you click the button on our website. So like if I click the replace PII button and the model is not already available, download it into my local storage, something like an index GB, I guess, it will make you wait. The good thing about the above two is that if it is, let's say, using an in-browser API or it is using the AIBrow extension, my understanding is that in those cases, either the provider of the browser or the extension would make sure that these models are shared across all the websites. So let's say if a person arrives on your website for the first time, but they were using this inbuilt AI feature on some other website, and maybe let's say if you're like, this is also the case with our company right now, if let's say we have multiple portals, if even if the AI model was downloaded once across all your products, it would be shared, assuming the user is using the same browser. But I believe these are all like initial friction, and if this standard gets broadly adopted, none of these things will matter, because every browser would have it, every provider would be, you know, on the systems. So these are like initial adoption issues which I think will go away with time. So let's just install npm install AIBrow web. So you would notice that this violates one of the rules that I set off in my initial statement, which was you shouldn't have to do a package solution. So npm i-vatum dev tool, this is not what we want. But in a lot of cases, and how many softwares operate, even if let's say you don't ship to the npm package registry, but you are reliant on tools which are coming from the npm package registry, you didn't really help your users use case. But as I understand, there are some ways and means to bypass this restriction. So if I am lucky enough and maybe in a subsequent iteration I can make sure that I am using, let's say, AIBrow web extension, or plugin from npm, but still, let's say, for those who are interested, I'll probably pull this from something like a Skypack. So this will be ESM module downloaded on fly. I am not an expert on how ESM and all the browser Node.js bundling works. And then my snippet becomes, I should say, piece of code that you copy onto your code base and use. So essentially no npm installs would be required, or better yet, maybe I can publish my snippet also to Skypack, and so then you only have to do like one Skypack import of Vatun's DevTools, and from there you can go. So you don't necessarily need to rely on npm. But these are somewhat advanced concepts which again I am also not a full expert on, but I'm pretty sure that with some effort invested I can figure this out. So now let's quickly install AIBrow web. Right, and then I import it. Syntax is good enough. I hope they have type definitions available. Looks like they do. Now, this is a nice thing, I should say, where they are giving you all three syntaxes. And so let's try going from the most restrictive syntax to, in my understanding, the least restrictive syntax. So let's try this one. I'm pretty sure this will fail because I'm trying to create a browser model using an API that doesn't exist. So let's just add it here, make this an asynchronous function. I will not prompt it right now because as soon as I run any sort of inference, there is a good chance that my laptop will freeze. So I'll have to be a little bit conservative about how I am trying to demo this here, because I'm already trying to stream to multiple outputs on this 4-year-old laptop. So anything can happen from here on out. You have been warned. Cool. So I will need the dev tools for this, and probably this will fail because I am in Chrome developer beta, and I think even in the developer version of Chrome this is not supported right now. Did it not refresh? I am struggling with live reload here for whatever reason. Oh, it's a slow thing. Oh, it worked somehow. Is it because of AIBrow? Maybe. But I think I recommended it to not override browser provided window.ai, so I'm not sure where this is coming from, because I almost certainly remember trying to have access to this and then it didn't work. Or it could be because of how the Chrome version of API worked, because I never tried AIBrow directly. I always tried to rely on this prompt API tutorial, and maybe they are showing me something wrong. But just for the sake of effect, I can show it to you on Arc, and hopefully they don't have this syntax supported. By the way, I'm not a heavy Arc user, so if I am not able to figure my way out around this software, please forgive me. If I click this button, so yeah, surely enough, you can see cannot read properties of undefined reading create. So it's failing here because language model is undefined. So on arc AI.browser is essentially undefined because it's trying to read. Oh, language model is undefined. That's why it's not able to find create. Cool. So now you know that this will not work. Another thing that we can do is we can do like a multi-step try catch situation where we have, I don't know what the syntax is for this, like what is the type definition of what we get from here. Okay, it's just very poorly documented type library because anything outside of browser is any. I'm not exactly sure why it's the way it is. Maybe it's not stable enough in the API and that's why they have not guaranteed anything. But in my opinion, they could have done something, but fine. So what we do here is that we say, okay, then AI model is any, and we close this off. Then we say try this, and I say console.log trying using inbuilt AI model, and should this statement succeed, now I'll say try this one. Where is that syntax which we saw? Yeah, here. So then we'll try this other one, which is AIBrow's own tooling. So we do again a try catch, where this time we will do AI model is this. Here we do AI model is this, and then we add a log trying to use AIBrow model, and then let's say even this one fails. Is the step where we do the last resort, which is I guess WebGPU based. And here I think most major browsers should support this syntax or this way of loading models, but as I have said multiple times before, it's not the ideal experience in many ways. But sometimes if you don't have any other access and you must ship on device intelligence to your users, so this might be the only option that you have. Okay, assigned a value but never used any. Let's fix it. We'll just ask TS background. I know what I am. Even this is failing. Unexpected. Unused. Okay. Am I using the native TypeScript extension? Yeah. So this is a new extension which is written in Golang and it's supposed to give better performance, but it's not perfect and sometimes gets a few things wrong. Obviously, maybe I am wrong here, but it doesn't look like it. Unused TS error directive. For me, This is valid. JavaScript, oh sorry, TypeScript. What am I doing wrong here? Okay, fine. We can use this. Yeah, I think unknown is a better idea. And let's log it. This one might take a long time. And here it will always, I guess, use the most easy to pull built-in model. And then let's say if I go here, it will try to use the first one and the second one and fail, and then in the third try it will succeed. So it tried the first one, it couldn't do it. It tried the second one, couldn't really do it. And then it tried the third one, I suppose, at some point, and then it didn't get it. So it's still fetching it. So you can see this Hugging Face download for this small 1.7 billion instruct model, which is a ONNX file. I have not a lot of idea how this syntax or this particular format works, but as I understand, it's an open standard to save LLM models, and it's a 1.41 gigabyte download, so I'll cancel it, and it's anyway happening. But if not done well, as I understand, even within the same website, there is a slight chance that if let's say you reload at any point, you might lose the progress that you have for the model that you downloaded, and it will start from scratch. So this download is not exactly, I should say, resumable. So again, it is downloading the model from 0 kilobytes. If I'm looking at the right request, looks like I am. So yeah, this is the final option that we have. And if let's say I use this AIBrow extension in something like Edge, so we can what if I have the AIBrow Chrome extension, but I don't have I don't want to download the ONNX model. So if I have llama.cpp installed, and I know for a fact that this particular browser doesn't support inbuilt AI, then technically AIBrow should take over and help me with the model fetching and not do that long network call which Arc is having to do right now. It's only downloaded 500 megabytes right now, and it's already about 2 minutes, which is not bad, assuming that you have a fast enough internet and hoping that this sort of big fetch only happens once for your website. This is not bad, but sometimes you have several reasons to sort of burst your cache and stuff like that, and in those cases you might not be okay with this sort of a download. Cool, so now let's try it on Edge. I will first do it without the AIBrow extension. You can see it is not installed, and then it should be fetching the ONNX model just like how it was doing for the Arc browser. I'll reset it so that the download stops, and then I'll quickly install AIBrow extension, As I understand, I already have AIBrow installed and the models configured, and it should be pulling from that one. I hopefully have these models installed. Yes, mini LM, small LM2. As far as I understand, one of these two models is pulled. I guess this one, because this is the one that's last used. So now when I do it here, there should be no big network call happening here. So this one didn't happen. Okay, but this one is still going. So I'm not sure if it is using the correct thing that it should. Could be because, let's say, this AIBrow thing hasn't kicked in yet. Like I said, it's not perfect DX right now either, so maybe I'm not saying that I'm doing everything right, but there is a chance that even if I'm doing everything right, there is some rough edges that still need to be ironed out. Okay, this time when I clicked replace PII, nothing happened. Right, now it is pulling from the extension. So trying using inbuilt AI model, and then I see this logged. So as I understand, what's happening is that this particular line is not getting triggered, and this line itself is succeeding even in Edge. So even in Edge, as soon as you install AIBrow, this native thing starts succeeding. Now, as I would have hoped, this thing should not have worked, and this should have only worked once I enabled this particular thing, which is override browser provided window AI, and maybe this is a gap in my understanding of how this thing works, but that's what I think the instructions should have done. But fine, let's move on for now. Let's see how our llama thing is doing. Hopefully I didn't completely reload it. Yes, so this one succeeded, and then there was another somewhat huge download, 4 MBs that happened, and then so yeah, this is another problem that I am seeing when trying to run the WebGPU version, that even if you get everything right, there is some flags or experimental stuff that you have to enable for this to work. So we'll just copy this error and see what Google has to say. If I have to launch Google via command line, that's sad. I hoped that it would be behind like a Chromium flag. Home at my consult, WebGPU enabled in Chrome dev, go to Chrome flags. Okay. We have to enable unsafe WebGPU support. So hopefully I don't have to download it again in Arc. It will be very much dependent on how AIBrow implements their fetch logic, but we will at least have to enable WebGPU support, and hopefully they have a option here to enable it. Unsafe, we'll enable it here. Obviously make sure that you know what you're doing when doing all this. There could be a risk to your machine or your data. I'm not exactly sure what exactly this vulnerability means for you, but I understand what I'm doing here, and at least in this constrained environment I trust what's happening. But yeah, do your own checking before doing anything from this point onwards. So let's see what happens now. Yeah, thankfully this time it pulled it from a disk cache, and then the experience would be almost on par with what we were seeing with the download. But again, I am seeing this new error now, which is about um, some WASM error. Not exactly sure what this means. I'll do like a couple of searches, but then I'll move on quickly from here because I think I have more things to cover which could be more important. I don't think this is the error that I'm facing. It's a WASM related error. Yeah, PyOD is also a very cool project which runs Python in your browser, so I guess people are seeing similar problems because that is also WASM based. I think I saw NS assertions here. I have no idea. I am on an x86, or is it called x64 architecture? So these ARM and MacBook issues should not apply to me. I don't know. I don't think this is helping. Okay. I think this is fine. We can move ahead from here because I don't see a lot of help for my case here, at least from an initial search, and I anyways have AIBrow downloaded and working, and so we can use it, but just know that like in an ideal scenario this should have worked by default with this model, and even if it is not working right now, this will iron itself out and start working eventually even without these sort of extensions. So AIBrow is sort of something that is there, but it's mostly for just a transitionary period unless they pivot into something and still people find them valuable. I hope they do, but yeah, that's how it is right now. Cool. Then now that we have a language model, let's try a basic prompt, which is something like this: write a short poem about weather. We'll use their own example, and for now I think I can get rid of all this other stuff, or I can just keep it because I know this statement will not evaluate further than that. How do I create a session? Okay, AI model dot prompt, and this should work. So I'll need to define my own definitions at this point. So it will be something like a null or something which has a prompt function which returns an input and gives a promise of string, and then I initialize it with a null, and then finally I do a check, although again I believe this won't be invoked because the catch will throw. So there is not a practical way to reach this point without having AI model defined, but still. So we'll run this. So this will again, it will be somewhat slow because this is on device, and while this is running you might notice your system sort of struggling a little bit, or you can see the fans going up. Like I think I can hear it on my machine, maybe because the mic is so close to the laptop. You can hear it as well, but currently, as I understand, there is some inference going on my machine, and all of this is running via the browser. So technically, even if let's say we get a response here, there should not be any network request that is responsible for the poem generation. See, you already have the poem generated. How cool is that? So we used on browser, on machine inference by a model which is sourced from the internet on the fly. And if you're using a browser extension like AIBrow, it's not even sourced on the fly, it's already there, it's shared across all the different websites which are integrated to AIBrow. So I think it's pretty cool. And if it is not there, it will always use the WebGPU fallback. Of course, I couldn't show it to you, but I believe these are all, maybe it's something wrong in my doing, or it's just broken right now. But yeah, if I learn how to do that on-fly sourcing for WebGPU based models, I would share that as well. Maybe follow me on LinkedIn. I think that's an easier mode for me to communicate and show these sort of updates. I don't get to stream as much or do live streams, but yeah, this is cool. So now step 1 is done, which is okay, we got LLMs running on our system, on device, on the fly. Next is detect PII and replace it. So this is a somewhat difficult task. Now what I mean by that is that we would want to replace these things, but it might look like a one body of text on the surface of it, but if I click on it and inspect, it's HTML, which is hypertext markup language, right? Each of these will have to be separately analyzed. Like, we'll ideally want to go as deep as possible, and then read from like the childest node possible, like the least leaf node possible, and detect, okay, is the data shown here a valid candidate for PII or not? Now I can think of several use cases which can work for or against us. So like, just so you know, I am not looking to solve all these edge cases on the stream, but just giving you an idea of what I'm thinking about it. So HTML could look in like similar looking HTML can actually look very different from a markdown or markup perspective. So one way I can render a phone number is this. I can have like a span, and I can have numbers like 898, and then you could have another span which is like a separator. Depends on like some banks which are like very using like very old code or something that hasn't been maintained would probably have like a bad way of showing markdown like this. Like, this is not really necessary, but sometimes it might be. Let's say if you're using some library which is using separators and stuff like that, so potentially this is something that you don't really control, and you could have things like 456, and this is what your mobile number looks like. But then on the flip side, I can have another way of showing the same thing, which could be very simple. You have a section or a div, and then you have a closing div, and you have the whole number pasted here. So it will be something like 898, could have dashes, not very popular in India, but I know in other places this dash syntax is very common. So this is another syntax. But if I do like a child logic only check, I will miss on these opportunities. So if I only look at the lowest possible node, it will always look at the lowest possible, and then it might say 456. This is not privately identifiable information, because you'll probably need to look at it from a whole perspective for it to realize that, oh, this is actually 898123445 6, which is an actual number. Otherwise it will not recognize. But here it's pretty simple, right? If this is the way that you go, you're golden. You don't need to do much, and you can just straight up feed this into an LLM, and in my understanding it shouldn't be too hard to understand for the LLM as well, to look at this and be like, oh, this looks like some sort of a private identifiable number. Maybe it might get confused between a social security number and a mobile number. I don't know what a social security number looks like, but in an Indian context, let's say you have an Aadhaar number and a mobile number, both placed in individual child leaf nodes of divs. It would replace it all the same, because both of them would pretty much look like privately identifiable information. I would say that this particular way is more common. Like, this is still less common. I know for a fact that at least in our software, this is not how we do it. We will much rather use the simple and good enough syntax. So this is the one that I'll design for right now, but I did talk you through a few cases where, let's say, the markdown doesn't look as simple. I am saying markdown and again, but it's the wrong language to use here. It's probably markup. And then there are a few other cases which I'll just leave it here for you. Let's say area code, just giving you one example, and maybe these are like two divs, and like the fact that 1234 is PII only becomes obvious when you look at it from the whole context of this thing. Maybe 1234 or let's say a more confusing example would be 12, right? 12 could be 12 makes sense as PII if looked at the whole thing. If you look at the whole thing together, it doesn't make 12 very well, could be just a page number, right? And then it's not PII, because then you can technically have this sort of a UI on your website where you have, let's say, many small boxes, and each of them, let's say, has a number in them, and then all these represent like pages, right? You can look at Google, not this Google, but who is the Prime Minister, just as an example. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this could be identified as PII potentially, or confused as between PII and non-PII if you have it like this. But as I said, most PII would be of this shape, where just looking at the child, or I should say the leaf node of the markup, would tell you that this is PII. You would look at it as one unit without even assistance from a sibling or a parent node, and that's the case that I will build right now as a POC. So then essentially what you need to do is comment this out, and we'll need a function like so I'll fetch all the PII nodes, right? And once I get those, replace PII with AI generated content. Now we could obviously do a better job naming these functions, but this is the essential core of the thing that I'm trying to build. Now I'll add a doc string here to tell the LLM what I'm trying to do. Goes through all the child nodes. So now whatever I was explaining to you here in my diagram is something that I'll essentially communicate to the LLM via documentation, and most of the heavy lifting then can be done by an LLM, and I will just be validating it, mostly because I don't remember the exact syntax. By the way, all this source code is gonna be available on my GitHub or in a GitHub gist that I'll share somewhere in the description as well as on my socials. Um, but yeah, this sort of cool side projects are something that I get to build a lot, mostly because I'm constantly experimenting and trying to find ways to leverage the time I spend at Vatun and get the most out of the time that we have. And if you are interested on working on problems like this, Vatun is basically an insurtech company where we are building CRMs as well as marketing softwares and anything essentially that an intermediary needs to stay compliant, uh, get ahead and grow their business, scale, and grow their profits over time. A lot of AI built-in features are in the pipeline, and we have already shipped some of them. This involves things like us doing automated policy entry for the intermediaries and brokers and agents, supporting them to also send renewal reminders and stuff like that, and making them as customized and targeted as possible using AI as well as non-AI technologies. Uh, and then we have a few other things which are like linking to your own email accounts and calendars and coordinating everything in between to really make your workforce productive and enable you to get more done with less people than we have ever been able to do in the past in the insurance industry. So that's what we currently do. We are a young and small team right now of passionate developers and product managers and designers. Uh, but yeah, and we pay a lot of attention towards how how innovative of solutions can you come up with, and like another major criteria for us to consider if you are a nice addition to our team is how well you gel with the existing team already and what you bring to the table. So if any of this excites you, make sure you hit me up on LinkedIn, and if we have an opening at any point, we would be more than happy to chat. So with that said, self promo aside, let's get on with it. Goes through all the leaf HTML nodes like paragraphs and spans and gets their content. If the text content is classified by PII as PII by LLM, this one will also need AI model. Another thing that I've realized is this should probably be a type. But this is not gonna check if this is an actual leaf. Okay, cool. So what it's saying is that there is a property in which is A, you should have node.hasChild nodes. So this should return because we don't want this. And then we have the content, and then I have to check. Can I do structured output? I don't think so. That would be cool. Structured outputs. So for those who don't know, I can show you what structured outputs are. Basically, I don't want any random text to be blurted out. It should follow a certain set pattern that, let's say, if the prompt given to the LLM is to generate a lasagna recipe, it should be only in this format where there is an object, it should have a recipe key, and those recipe keys should have name and then an array of ingredients and stuff like that. This is called structured output generation in LLM. Versal AI SDK 4 has this method called generate object, and I don't know, yeah, this is also carry forwarded in version 5 because this is the latest documentation. But I need to check if this is provided in the AIBrow SDK as well. I'm not very sure if it is there. Let's check. AIBrow supports defining grammar on the language model. Not sure if, yeah, it looks like they do. Something of that sort is there. Prompt. Okay, so there's this weird syntax called response constraint. Not sure how broadly applicable this is. Cool, we'll try it out. But how will we test it? I have an idea. We'll comment this code for now. We will not call it here either. But how we were doing write a poem, I'll say, again, now we are entering into math territory. And obviously it's very basic math, but if everything is as they say it is, this should be accepting a second parameter called response constraint, and that takes a grammar, which is basically an object with a capital O. Okay, this will be props. This becomes object. And this is optional, and then we come here and then we say response constraint, and this is not a token limit, this is a type object, and then we have properties, and here we say valid, and then we say type boolean. I am not sure if this is the correct syntax because there is not enough documentation. It's very new. I am not even sure if this is part of the standard spec. Response constraint, Google device AI. Again, no documentation, at least any that I could find. So this could be wrong for all I know. But still, let's try it. have clicked the button, and as always it takes a while to load the AI model, and then it takes some even more time and a few watts of electricity to get it. Oh, it's actually sort of how I expected it to be. I guess this is JSON schema, if I'm not wrong. So there is this schema standard, I guess, and if I'm not wrong, this is how it looks like. I wish they had some examples here itself. Right, so all of these different possible JSON values can be provided like this. So we can also, technically we don't need this object to save on tokens and I guess complicate things a bit less. I can do technically just this. This should be valid as far as I understand. Let me format this real quick and run it again. Is 1 equals to 1, valid is boolean, so if it's valid it should return something like this is what I would expect. Correct. So I click here again, it takes 5 seconds to load the AI model and it takes a bit more. You would notice that this time it's the AI responses are coming a bit faster, majorly because the output token length is not all that much. Here you would notice that it messed up. It did not give me a proper response. Now this could be because this is not valid JSON schema. So it did try to render something, but it didn't at least register on the panel. So let's check. I guess the top level key has to be a type object. Is that the constraint? I'm not sure. Again, I'm not an expert in this schema system. I guess you will have to have a properties top level key for it to work. It doesn't even throw a proper exception, so that's the problem. It's not very well implemented or documented right now. You're really sitting on the cutting edge of technology with this one, and you'll get to notice what are the different caveats that come with working on something that's so new. Okay, one more run and then we can start copying this logic over for our own use case. Language model loaded. Yeah, this works. So as I understand, this is we should have saved this to a value object and then not only rendered the response, but also the type of the response. I'm almost 100% sure that this is a string, so we'll also parse it here. And let's try one more time. Just a minute. Am I still live? I guess so. Cool. Right, so it was a string and then I parsed it. And also see, because it's on device, it won't be right all the time. In fact, it's quite a dumb model. So it's saying that 1 plus 1 is not equal to 2. Sorry, 1 is not equal to 1. So you do have to take it with a bit of grain of salt. But hey, it's free and you didn't pay for it, and it's running on your own device, so we can't complain. Also, as I understand, as long as you can source a ONNX model for it, which Hugging Face is full of, you can theoretically run this with a GPT OSS 20 billion parameter model, which obviously will be much better than this, or some other Quen model, and that should also be much better. But again, you'll have to figure out the logistics of getting this to run on your machine. And again, I guess GPU support and WebGPU support will be a bit mixed, and all those constraints will have to be factored in. But for the most part, with llama.cpp and all, you should be good enough, even with those models, if your hardware can afford to run it. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't work. But anyways, moving on. Okay, so I need to write a good text prompt and the constraint. So we have a response constraint, type object. Okay, properties is PII. I for now will not use reason because I believe that's a bit overkill for the caliber of the machine that I am on right now. We don't really have the bandwidth to output all these tokens. And then the value, and then we give it the value, which is the text content, and then you are a PII detection expert. PII meaning personal. Your job. Come on, Copilot. In our context would be Now we also need to add a few negative examples. Another thing that we can do is, can you please improve this? Also, we should say please to save on tokens. Can you improve this AI model PII identification prompt? Give both positive and negative cases and add instructions to prove detection accuracy. So GPT and Claude and all these models are quite good at prompt engineering. I personally don't like writing long prompts myself. And in my belief and also in my experience, having a good, well-crafted system prompt really helps. It especially helps if either you have a few both positive and negative examples. I think positive examples help more uh, from an LLM's perspective, but you can also have um, a two agent model where, let's say, one agent or one prompt is especially responsible for generating content, and other is a critique model which will check the work done by the previous agent. It's also not encouraged to do both the generation and judgment of that within the same prompt, because then an LLM tends to be always biased towards their own output. All these factors that I'm telling you right now, it's there in the 21 Agents book. If you want it, hit me up on LinkedIn. I can share a link. It's a freely available book, at least it was back when I got it on Google Docs. That has a lot of these basic concepts that you require to do AI engineering in today's time. So it has generated some AI based prompting. Yeah, it has added a much more I should say inclusive prompt, where it's having HTTP status code, example order IDs, queues, all of that. These are all in negative examples, and it has also added a few positive examples. I'll do a further revision to this and say that add examples specifically to India as well, since that's my major target audience. Also, monetary amounts should also be masked, even if they are not PII per se, because we are in the insurance domain. Add maybe targeted examples for this domain as well. So the more you tell this AI system about your use case, your patterns, all of that adds up over time. And maybe to obviously we can't do it here because the scope is much more on device and local focused, but if you can, let's say, do RAG on the fly and give it actual real world examples from your own real production data, that's gonna be helpful even more. Obviously then security and making sure that you're accessing the right people's data only, all of those considerations come in, but um, this is the best you can get when you are so focused on just the prompt. The another improvement that I could think of in this model is to improve the prompt itself without having to redeploy the code base. So let's say this is hard coded in your system, you can't update it as easily because then you'll probably have to rebuild your whole web app, unless you're doing some micro front end stuff. But again, I believe then we are doing an overkill thing for something so basic, where essentially this prompt is sourced on the fly from some sort of repository or database, and as and when you are seeing more and more use cases, somebody can go in, or maybe the AI itself can suggest improvements to this AI masking tool. uh, so if let's say you discover a new kind of PII, like UPI ID or something like that, that can over time get caught up and detected. uh, right, I think it has added a bunch more of useful things. Now the only thing that I'm concerned about is uh, names alone are not PII. Names command is another identifier are PII. That's okay. uh, Again, maybe it's not PII, but I might still want to replace it uh, for whatever different reasons, because I would want as much randomization as possible. But I don't entirely disagree with what the AI is going for here, so I'll keep it for now. Another thing that we can do is we can manage a new folder called prompts, so that this itself doesn't become very large. So we have two prompts essentially in this system. One is PII detection.ts, and I'll name it as such, and then I'll cut copy paste this whole thing. Right, so now I do a PII detection, and everything else remains the same. Hopefully when I do this, it has already added this logic. I'd like to log it separately when we have a case. I'll just add a log that parsed was present, but it was not detected as PII, because there will be several nodes like name, phone number. All of these are not PII. Again, the model might not be so smart as to perfectly detect this, but that's what we are conceptually trying to make here. Correct. So we can run this now. It will be somewhat slow because we're essentially doing this for loop for every node that you have. Let's see what happens. I am kind of excited to see this output. We should have checked or added a log. I kind of possibly did a double execution there. So I'm running it again. Now my fans are really going. I don't know if you can hear it, so that's basically means the LLM model is at work. This one is from the sample that we try. This particular piece of code is 1 equal to 1, the one that we added to learn about this API, because it's not documented. So constants loaded at this, probably this is something which is hidden and injected by Vite, because I don't see this text on my page is something injected by a Chrome extension or Vite. Maybe it will identify this timestamp as PII because it's a dumb model, right? But we'll let it do its thing. Let's see how my task manager looks like while doing all of this. Oh, interestingly enough, it is using my GPU because I've had done a run previously where GPU was not getting used. I don't know where else it was getting influenced from, or maybe it was not working at all. I'm not sure if this GPU load is entirely because of my work that I'm trying to do on with this on-device inference, or is it because of me trying to live stream this video? Because again, this is very new for me. Probably if I had worked with this on-device new APIs for a few days, I'd probably have a better answer. But looks like both my CPU and GPU are hard at work to do something. I still, by the way, haven't received a response for even this one sentence that it got somewhere from this frame. So where one can only imagine how taxing it would be to run it for a whole page. Like essentially it will have to parse through John Doe, phone number, social security number, and then this and then this. So it's not the fastest, of course, at least right now. Maybe we can do some parallelization. Currently all these calls to the on-device AI model are chained one after the other because we are doing a for loop here, is synchronous for loop. But then you also need to think about what will happen to your GPU, right? If assuming everything is coming from GPU, doing a lot of parallel calls, I'm not exactly sure how that would work. And also because it's majority video encoding load, so I'm not even sure if this is actually because of the AI model. I'm not sure if this is the AI model is doing. Another way to verify it is that, let's say if I close this and start, and let's say let it idle for a few minutes, if this usage doesn't go down, essentially what is happening is it's not using the GPU at all, or at least not in a way that is detectable by this task manager. Another thing, I should see like a spike in one of these metrics if the inference is getting used by if the inference is happening on my system. I'll save this file so that useless test that we were doing, if 1 is 1, doesn't trigger. Another interesting thing that I can do is probably can we convert this to an array? What I'm trying to do is can you jumble this array of nodes? Essentially what I want to do is that I want to see a new first node every time, because it's so slow that I don't want to get stuck on the same child node every time. I want a different node ideally, at least to start with, and because it's shuffled and it only looks at the child node, so eventually it will mask all of them. Um, but at least this will make it more interesting from like a onlooker's perspective. So the usage is, I guess it's persistently high, instead of going up only during the inference. Uh, my machine is again going up, like I can hear the fans going, and I see my CPU utilization going up from time to time. Not exactly sure what that is about. So this time it picked this name John Doe classification job first. I haven't seen any output yet. So slight CPU increase. Not exactly sure how the system is taking this job on. I think this is a deep dive for another video. But yeah, let's see if we get an output. If I am able to get an output for even one such node, then we can technically go to the next step, which is actually offering a replacement for this PII classification, positive PII classification, to replace this name John Doe with something else like Vijay Dev or whatever, like just picking random examples. We let it work. All of this is running locally. I don't see any network calls at least. In the meantime, I don't want to ask ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot to write the next step, although it can, because it has already done a good enough job with the first input prompt, to also generate it for the next step, that if you receive a positive classification, suggest an alternative text and we will replace it with it. Because if I do that on GitHub Copilot, it will, I think, by default replace the text, and that would cause a reload and might wipe out this GPU task that we have triggered, or sorry, model inference task that we have triggered. And another thing that we'll need to probably optimize is that it's taking too much time to decide if something is PII or not. It's probably because of the large size of system prompt that we have. While that is gonna improve accuracy, we can't afford to run it all that much, right? So it has classified as not PII, probably because of the input context that we had given it, that if you are not seeing John Doe associated with a particular entity, like an amount or a phone number, then that's not PII. But as we talked about in the design constraint here, I don't want to accommodate all these other cases where I have to provide context, because not only would it improve or increase the complexity, but also increase the tokens that I have to potentially send to the LLM. We see that at least the structured output is working. It might not be correct, and we can prompt for that, but at least this conceptually is working. Now I'll I understand that at this point we're probably um, bending the definition of what PII is in a lot of contexts. But I would say then our goal is not necessarily to mask PII, but randomize any sort of named entity, NER, named entity recognition, I guess, at that point, and replace it throughout the system. Named entity plus identifiers. Uh, let's just ask ChatGPT what it thinks about the concept that I'm talking about. That's what I don't like about Ask Mode. It goes through the whole workspace at times, and then you have to rerun it without it, and then again it might not give it to you what you are actually looking for. And I didn't want it to immediately go to coding. I actually wanted to understand what it thinks first, and this is sort of a weird space right now for this Copilot agent to navigate, but I'm sure they'll figure it out in the next few iterations. Also, I just noticed that I'm on light mode, and I know I'll be trolled for it. But yeah, that's, I sometimes like light mode. Right, so I think now it has become more correct. Now I'll switch back to agent mode. Also input, now I'm trying to tell it to compress this information insofar as possible. uh, I also realized that we probably can't read the prompt when I'm typing it right here. So you can now look at it here. Yes, please change this prompt in code. Also maybe change the is PII structured output expectation to a more appropriately named one, because now it's not PII anymore. Also, input tokens are expensive because I don't want to take all that much time and resources to identify each one of them. It's really slow right now the way it is working. Every classification is taking a few minutes, which is too slow for our use case. It's fine because I guess it's mostly a POC and a tryout of sorts right now. But clearly that's not something that you can take to production right now. Maybe this would be better if, let's say, it was able to actually use the GPUs and whatever that is on the system. As I understand right now, it's not using a lot of the muscle power properly for many potential reasons, not all of which are something that I can explain right now, but um, maybe you can play around with a few other models, maybe try a Gemma model or a Phi model. I guess Quen would be great. I'm not even sure if I have them downloaded though. Let's see if I switch to Quen. It would have to download it, right? Let's see. I am not sure how this will work. Yeah, I agree with this one. So the new term that it has come up with is sensitive, and I agree. Uh, I think sensitive is about as good a name as possible. Okay, what happens if I reload? Okay, currently it's in a broken state. I was thinking if it would trigger the Quen download because Quen is not present here. It's also like this, although I don't notice any difference personally. It would probably delete this file. The PII detection one. Or at least leave it to me that okay, it's now your job to rename or delete the older files. But yeah, I had somewhat high hopes with this one. I did not know that the performance would be like this. Uh, Even I am somewhat taken aback. But at least from a conceptual point of view, it's a very cool concept. Um, and obviously, I'll keep working on this and keep understanding this more. Uh, and hopefully, in some time, I would be in a place where I am able to do some useful application of this capability. Currently, I guess it's in a very nascent stage. We don't need this anymore. Right, everything looks okay. I'll just scale a server and restart. Right, as I understand, there should be a download triggered this time, because even though we are sourcing it from AIBrow, the AI model, it doesn't have that model. Right, using an AI model to improve your experience. This model wants this website wants this model as I expected. Okay, so it's not triggering the model download from the network tab of this particular app, which makes sense because it will have to share it across different different websites. So it makes sense that if it probably fetches it From here it won't be shareable across different domains. um, but the speed looks terrible. I don't know where it's sourcing these models from. Not sure how big this model is. I did see some model sizing data on Hugging Face. Yep, 3 GBs. Yeah, the model is just not downloading at a speed that I'm happy with. And as I see it, AIBrow doesn't even have a way of telling my own LLM model paths. Okay, while this is downloading, we can, I guess, move on. So this is what my prompt looks like. Yeah, this download is just not working. Okay, what about we use this Q4KM model? I am not sure what model we were using previously. Just to quickly go through this end-to-end flow. This is too complicated. the base local AI model will not be able to figure out at this level of complexity, but um, so I guess here it's trying to do like a search and replace logic, like how we have it in Claude code and stuff like that. Or did I completely misunderstand? Yeah, it's like half open indices and stuff like that. I don't want that complication. I just want to do like a pure replacement. Now I'm thinking, what if I just rely on the WebGPU based download? Because at least then the download was being sourced from again face in the network tab here, and I could more easily inspect it, although I can inspect this as well technically. But again, it's somewhat more trickier to debug. Maybe if I turn it back off and back on again, and then monitor the network trace. Why would I need to replace title? So do nodes have titles? I did not know this. Okay, this is the tooltip pop-up. Okay, this is new for me. I did not know this property. Makes sense though. Can I see like a playground demo of this to confirm if it's actually used? Interesting. So now the flow looks like we identify the sensitive nodes, and then for each of them we add outline, and what is this? I guess we can attach any random strings. No, I'm learning about all these new HTML properties. Okay, it's gonna write to a data attribute. Didn't know that you could change it via the data set attribute. I used to always think uh, okay, it's something related to a data attribute. Nothing, not non-standard, but also not something that's I see commonly used. Okay, I want to ideally combine these two steps. Uh, okay, this way I'll get stuck. So it will first do all the identifications and then do all the replacements. Can you merge identification and replacement in such a way that you can that they run together? uh, is done in one shot. Again, I think no matter what I say here, the LLM will understand essentially what I'm trying to get it to do here. So now I think we are in a place where we will have some demo working. It will be very slow, probably inaccurate, but it's something new and potentially something that will be very powerful and commonplace in the future. I did see somebody running DeepSeek in the browser a few months back and it was okay. So a similar idea I also have, and probably if you go via the WebGPU one, again, if you don't go through the errors that we saw today, it will probably be more like it will be better, because then I guess at least you have a guarantee that it's using your actual GPU instead of some integrated graphics or whatever. I wish I could show you people this particular website because I think it was working at some point. We also have some examples for some other models like Quen. Okay, this is not Quen, this is DeepSeek distilled on Quen. Again, I believe this is too much input prompt. It might have compressed both of them into one prompt. This could potentially work, but I don't want to risk it. Should we risk it? So first it gets all the leaf nodes. It's not doing replacement, I guess. I don't want to do this. So I undo this and this as well. What I actually want to do is I don't want you to merge the two prompts into one prompt. The detection and replacement should still be two different LLM calls. I just want them to happen one after the other for the same node, instead of all nodes going through the identify process first and replacement process later. Let's see if it gets what I'm trying to say right now. Every time I just said that LLM would understand what I'm trying to do, and that's exactly the time when it didn't. But it's okay. Meanwhile, back to finding that hosted version of DeepSeek. Not hosted, but like working off the browser. Yeah, I think this might be the one. Yeah, I think now it sort of got what I was trying to get it to do. Let's try now. Okay, I don't want the download to happen. I think my laptop is again getting stressed. Right, so this was the thing that I was talking to you about. There are a few examples in the Hugging Face library, and where people are able to run models off of the WebGPU that you have, and that inference is good enough inference in many cases. And this is something similar that we are trying to do here in our toy sensitive information replacement project. So now it's getting John Doe and testing it if it's sensitive or not. And then if it is sensitive, it will try to come up with a replacement. Like, full disclosure, it very well might not call it sensitive even despite the prompts that we've given it, but that's just a function of the sort of model that you're working with. And that's also the primary reason why Google and all these browser developers are giving you multiple APIs, because they understand that you might need more purpose built or fine tuned or other sort of architectures which can run and give a good enough accuracy for a specific use case, instead of actually trying to give you a generic model, because we're just not there yet in terms of efficiency in LLMs, but one day we'll get there. So while this is happening, right, it did, I guess, identify it as PII, and yes, the tooltip works. It did detect it as sensitive data and put an outline over it, and now it's giving it to the LLM replace input. And as I said, none of this is going via a network call to some inference provider or even my own system's backend. All of this PII detection or sensitive data detection is happening on device, albeit very slowly and very inefficiently. But hopefully, if I can get this to run over WebGPU, it will be much better. Um, Currently, as I understand, it's not able to tap into my system, uh, and maybe that is a deep dive for another day. But so far, so good. Even if I can get it a little bit more accurate with a higher amount of speed, that is also gonna be a huge gain for me. And I guess we can sort of take a test of that once this model is downloaded, because if this is working and if this is using GPU, and maybe if I can get higher GPU utilization registered here while this is working here, then we'll at least have some confidence on the WebGPU model. Do let me know if you know a better way to increase efficiency here, because I believe the reason it is so slow right now is also because of the amount of input that I'm giving here. Oh yes, it did replace it. Good enough replacement, I guess. It added a phone number for no reason, and sort of a email. Uh, Maybe this is something that we can refine in the prompt. It also got rid of the name prefix, I guess, but that's also sort of an result of the architecture that we went with, which was we only go by the child nodes, and if a child node, let's say, has a prefix like this, we are at the mercy of the LLM model uh, to sort of do the right thing, unless we improve the prompt, which we can. Uh, so I might tweak the prompt to tell it that this particular Right, so this is ready. So let's just look at the inference speed. So this is pretty good inference, I would say. Uh, and is this impacting my task manager? If anything, it has gone down. I guess it was at 70% before, uh, and now it is 48. But this is saying GPU 0 now. I'm not sure if it was saying GPU 0 before. I think it must be. So it's back to 60-70%. But yeah, this was pretty good inference. Let's ask a few more questions. What's the reverse of Oreo? See, it's quite fast. Again, I'm not exactly seeing a direct translation into utilization. Maybe if you are on the GPU, the registration is much lesser. So it even detected this as PII or sensitive. Right. We can also see how DeepSeek is performing, because majority prompt is this one, this only. Uh, so this one is roughly correct, although I don't get the logic of capitalization, but I guess it just flipped the cases as well. Let's just ask it to fix the input that we gave it here. If let's say phone number is this, how quickly it can tell us that this is sensitive. See, it's quite good. It's 20 tokens per second, assuming that this is running on device. Slightly harder to verify it here because the system is somewhat not something that I made, but I would guess that it's keeping its word. See, this is also running on Wasm. And yeah, it's not doing a network call, at least. But see, even this is getting stuff wrong. But maybe it's more because of the nature of this input, where it already feels like a masked input. But still, this reasoning is wrong. Maybe if I give a real number, this reasoning might change. But let's say I give it a somewhat real looking number. And let's see if its response changes. In the meantime, let's also replace this with more realistic data, because we're already sort of pushing the boundaries with this small model. Okay, now let's try running it again. Meanwhile, we can revisit what DeepSeek thinks. Yep, this time it says it's sensitive. Now let's also try the other prompt that we made, which was for sensitive replacement. Okay, I think this time it got confused by my previous input and this input, so we also tried over a new chat. So it did classify this as sensitive. Now it will probably try to find a replacement. Similarly, what DeepSeek is trying to do here. Yeah, this time it's doing the right thing. So see, this is like where it's hallucinating data where there isn't any. Now it's adding fake address. It's at least thinking about it, right? Majority this might not make its way into the final output. But yeah, now it's also contemplating this lack of structure, as I told it to keep in mind that if data is not there, don't even think of adding data. Like here now I'm thinking of prompt optimization. One optimization that I can think of is that as soon as you get the data and classify it as sensitive, also ask what sort of sensitive data is it. Is it name or email or whatever? And then have like multiple different prompts for each sort of data type, right? So phone numbers would have a separate prompt so that all this hallucination and cross thinking will not trigger, at least ideally, right? So while this is working, DeepSeek is also working. DeepSeek often, and a lot of these Chinese models tend to be very verbose in terms of their chain of thought, but I guess that's how they get the level of accuracy and benchmarks that they do, given their small size and open nature. Even the new GPT OSS models, they often warn the user that you will see like a very verbose thought trace. So I think this is also mentioned when you go to gptoss.com. At least that's what I think they are posting it there. So it says if you can read this, demo only, reasoning may be verbose, speculative or off, models can make mistakes, use responsibly, right? So this is something that I frequently see with a lot of these open models. And I think this is sort of DeepSeek had gotten stuck at this particular token. So yeah, it's still, a lot of this is very early stage tooling. So I at least showed you that there is a possibility of running LLM models with WebGPU, and that you can also download them on the fly and potentially use them to do these sort of on-device use cases, albeit it's not very good or effective right now. But uh, yep, I think it did come up with a replacement, although it replaced, I think, a mobile number with a name, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And it also added these parentheses or whatever they are called. So yeah, not the best experience, I would say, but fine. At least we got through a proof of concept, right? And obviously, like, you can run a larger model and proxy it via ollama, or use it a local ollama, and then essentially you're doing the same thing but with worse uh, non-technical user experience. But yeah, it's a trade-off essentially. And the intention of this video and this stream was to communicate to you the different possibilities which exist in terms of self-hosted LLMs and on-device execution. Uh, so it's a trade-off between ease of starting and using, which is like the best if you have a thing like in browser LLM installation, or maybe with something like AIBrow, which is the cool extension which I showed you today. And then the most difficult would be having to run your own ollama and having those models running and installed. But as you saw, there is a chance that that will work better in terms of accuracy and in terms of more verbose output, among other things. So the hope is that you will be equipped with a better tool set and better understanding of how these things work, and inculcate them in whatever way possible in your own projects. If you're a college student, this is a great idea to sort of build and show to the uh, recruiter if you're interested in that sort of a thing. But it's a good addition to your portfolio or your resume regardless. And if you're, you have any other ideas which are applicable and which you can think of in the fintech space or in insurtech space, do let me know about them as well. I would love to chat with you about them. So yeah, I think I was able to demonstrate at least the basic capability that I had in mind. The source code for all of this will probably be available on my GitHub, and you can find it there. If it's if you're watching this on some sort of a streaming platform, you will probably see the link to that code base in the description of the video, or like the first comment in the or it will be there in the first comment. So do check it out. Yeah, I hope you have fun doing your own experiments with LLM, and let me know how it goes.